After nearly 2 decades of close calls and years of being called one of the best players without a bracelet, Andy Bloch has finally gotten the monkey off his back by winning a $1,500 7-card stud event last week at the 2012 WSOP. Card Player TV spoke to Bloch about the win in this edition of Battle for the Bracelets.
Yeah, it feels great to finally actually have the statistic out there, one bracelet, instead of when people would come up to me and sometimes ask me how many bracelets you have, and I don't know if they're trying to needle me or they just really don't know that I didn't have a bracelet. And I would joke with them and say I had 93% of a bracelet, and it's half a joke. It's also a way that, as a poker player, it softens the blow, and in reality, that's how you have to think about things as a poker player. You have to say, okay, I got the money in good multiple times and ended up losing. You can't look at it and say, well, I should have won a bracelet, and then get down on yourself and let that affect how you play poker for the rest of your life. You just have to move on and say, well, I had the opportunity, I got the chips in, I had the odds in my favor. 93% of the time, I would have won a bracelet. So in my mind, I felt like I had part of a bracelet. It was certainly more money than most bracelets, and the money that I've won coming in second place in the World Series of Poker is worth 10 times what I won from this bracelet. So in some ways, it was a lot sweeter, I think, finishing second to Chip Reese and then winning this bracelet.
7-card stud events are consistently some of the smaller fields at the WSOP. Card Player TV asked Bloch if this had anything to do with his decision to play the event, or if he simply liked the game.
I love playing 7-card stud. It's one of my favorite tournament games. Possibly, I think it's the best tournament game out there, but a lot of people would probably disagree with me. I like it because there's a lot of antes in there, so it's really worth playing for. It was a smaller field than some of the huge no limits, but when you go back over the years, and even if you look at the $50,000 horse or players championship, there's only 100 and 120 players in that event. So it actually would be, if you're an average player, it'd be easier to win that. Of course, it's harder to be an average player in that field than in a 359 or whatever player field in a $1,500 stud. I think, yes, that field was weaker. I actually think it probably might have been easier to win a 359 player $1,500 stud event than the 5,000 stud event that had maybe a third as many players. It's pretty close, and it depends, of course, how good a player you are, and you have to get lucky. I really feel like I wasn't playing my best. I hadn't played stud in about a year since the last World Series, and I hadn't even played much live poker the rest of the year, and I definitely made some mistakes. I got the right cards at the right time and got lucky.
Bloch topped a very tough final table on his way to victory, including beating Barry Greenstein heads up for the bracelet.
Well, the final table, David Williams had the chip lead going in, and then he ended up finishing fourth, had a bad run of cards there with 4 players left. And then I got heads up with Barry Greenstein with a 3-1 chip lead, and I was pretty happy to have a chip lead against him because I know I don't have any edge over Barry in 7-card stud heads up. We've played before years ago. We both probably play a little bit differently now in Atlantic City in a small stud tournament, and he beat me heads up in that one. So there was a little bit of revenge going on there. That was for a lot less money and a lot less prestige, but it was still in the back of my mind. Not just this could be the third time I finish second after having the chip lead, but it was also would have been the second time I lose to Barry Greenstein heads up in a 7-card stud tournament. I didn't want either of those things to happen, so I was pretty happy when we finally played a big pot and I won it, and I had him in really bad shape.
Congratulations once again to Andy Bloch for capturing his first gold bracelet at the 2012 World Series of Poker.